It's enough to get me to the boiling point.
You just got wrecked.
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an awesome day today, having a look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We do have a mild green day today. We have had a slight recovery since the Bart Simpson of doom. You can see we have gone slowly upwards since then. So was that just a giant trap to shake out the weak hands? Well, I do want to talk about some bullish indicators today. One that doesn't show up very often, and when it does, usually Bitcoin tends to have a pretty big move afterwards. I also want to go into the fact that there is a massive buy wall over here on OKX at around $9,500. So there's clearly some whales that do not want the price to fall lower than that. I want to talk about massive Bitcoin accumulation. We're going to talk about that between the retail and the institutional sectors. I also want to go into why Bitcoin is still most likely going to grow, even if we do see the US economy start to shrink. And finally, I want to end on the $28,000 Bitcoin prediction by Bloomberg. And if all that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, definitely consider it. We do give away a Ledger Nano S every Monday. And without further ado, let's dive directly into the chart. So you can still see that despite the fact that we did have this crazy Bart Simpson pattern yesterday, Bitcoin is still sitting significantly above this major trend line down here and basically right on this trend as well. So in order for Bitcoin to really just become like mega, super bullish, really you're looking at around the $10,900 level. And the reason that is because that's basically where we go from wick to wick right here for resistance. And also to get out of this blue zone, we basically need to cross above 9,800. But here's the interesting part, okay? So whereas this, and I'm actually going to focus today a lot on the CME futures chart because there's just like a lot of interesting things going on over with the futures. But basically, you could see right here, you know, Bitcoin was sort of stuck in this trend, right? We kept hitting this resistance right here. Every time we hit it, we got rejected. We finally broke out. But here's the interesting part. Once we fell after the Bart Simpson pattern and we started to actually hit the resistance again, we actually broke out of it. And just yesterday, we actually had that resistance now becoming support. So is Bitcoin actually looking to potentially form a new pattern where now we'll be bouncing around, you know, between these two levels and continue upwards? That is possible because also keeping our eye on the CME futures chart, we do have a CME futures gap at $11,800, and we do know that basically every gap tends to get filled. Not only that, we're still in the descending broadening wedge, or you can technically say we're slightly above it, but you can also see that we've actually been supported very nicely for the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days on the CME futures chart, right above the 21 exponential on the daily. And you know the significance of this if you've been watching the channel. You know that the 21 exponential is very critical. You can see right here, once we've had this bounce off of it back in March of 2019, we basically sparked the run all the way up to the $14,000 Bitcoin. And also switching it to the weekly chart, I want to point out that we are well above the 21 exponential on the weekly as well. And you can see that we've actually had two nice touches down on that as well. So that is definitely looking somewhat bullish. Also the fact that we have a double golden cross incoming. I spoke about this yesterday. We have the 50 crossing above both the 100 and the 200, and most likely this 100 is going to end up curving above the 200 as well, making two golden crosses. Sorry about that sloppy drawing. Yesterday's drawing was much smoother. Also want to point out the fact that, you know, despite the fact that we did have that dump, we are still in the ascending channel right here. We did have a little bit of a fake out to the top and the bottom. We were held down by the heart line. So if we do break above this, you can see that pretty much by June 11th, we have some massive resistance overhead right here where Bitcoin is going to have to decide whether it's going to actually have a breakout to the upside or if we're going to actually retest some of these lower levels down here. Now, if we do break out from today, that target is actually around the $11,800 level, which is pretty incredible. Also, not to mention the fact that we do have the VPVR dropping off a cliff right here at around the 9,500 to 10,300, and then we do start to pick up some momentum again as we get higher right here around the $11,800 level. So seems like that level is really the level to watch, huh? Also want to point out what Hans Hodl said. Now, basically, he says another interesting observation is that market bottoms do tend to happen near the bottoming signature, okay? Which is what happens when both whales and retail money start to accumulate Bitcoin at the same time, causing a supply shortage on exchanges. Well, not only has there been a shortage, but we do know the halving just happened. So if we have a look right here, he actually points out, he says, interesting, last but not least, adjusted binary Bitcoin days destroyed shows that we are clearly in a heavy accumulation period. Coupling this with the recent halving, and you've basically got fireworks. He says, hodl on, my friends. Let Bitcoin do the heavy lifting. And also, I need to point out the fact that we have the PUL multiple, which is minor revenue indicator, flashing a massive buy signal. By the way, shout out to both Crypto and Glassnode for posting this. But I do want to just point out that you can see right here, the last 3 times, this called not only bottoms, but amazing opportunities to accumulate right before massive blast-offs. You can see right back here in 2012, here in 2015, right here at the beginning of the bottom, and then just recently we've gone down into the green zone again. Now, this isn't to say that we couldn't dip a little bit lower before having that blast off, but I just want to point out that, this is the 4th time this indicator has showed up, and the last 3 times it was totally accurate. So history doesn't have to repeat, but it often does rhyme, my friends. Also want to point out the fact that there is a $24 million passive bid total of passive bids over on OKX at around the $9,500 level. So is there a potential chance for a pullback to 9,500? Yes, could even be that price by the time you're watching this video, but there is massive demand at around that level. So it looks like either maybe just retail thinks that's a great price, or we do have some crypto whales saying 9,500 might be the last chance to buy Bitcoin before a major breakout. Maybe they know something we don't. Maybe they're just trying to trick us. Who knows? You have seen these guys post these big sell walls, and then as the price goes, they just pull the orders, and then the price slides right down, right? It could just be a giant trick to trap investors on the wrong side, but I just wanted to point that out. But I do want to talk about Fidelity Digital Assets, and they made this tweet yesterday, and they said later this month we'll be releasing highlights from our annual Institution Investors Digital Asset Study conducted by Greenwich Associates, and check out the highlight. The results suggest that digital assets continue to gain adoption and interest by a variety of institutional investors. And not only that, but the latest reports from Bloomberg reveals that they believe that Bitcoin will retest its highs of 2017 and could go as high as even $28,000. How did they come to this? Well, we'll get to that in just a second, but you could basically see that the report suggests that pretty much the pandemic and, what's been going on recently has accelerated Bitcoin's maturation as an asset, showing its strength amid declining equities. Now, they say our graphic depicts the rapidly rising 30-day average of the grayscale Bitcoin assets under management near 340,000 in Bitcoin equivalents, which represents about, are you guys ready for this? 2% of the total Bitcoin supply. 2 years ago, they had about 1%. Now, I know some people are screaming, well, that sounds like centralization over on GBTC. Could be, possibly. Keep in mind, they wouldn't be buying these assets if there wasn't a demand for it, and the fact that they're up to 2% is incredible. So these guys single-handedly have 2% of the Bitcoin supply, okay? Because people are demanding it. Now, moving on, we have the report saying that something needs to go really wrong, okay, for Bitcoin not to increase in value. Then they go on to state that we will approach the 2017 high of 20,000 and maybe even a high of 28,000. Basically, how did they come with this? Well, they say last year the high was 14,000, right? We wicked up to it, which would translate into almost double which would be 28,000. That's 2 times 14,000 in 2020 if rotating within the recent band and mean little in the big picture. And if that's not enough to get you excited, Plan B actually posted this really interesting chart over on his Twitter. And he said, in my opinion, investors cannot ignore this. So check this out. If you were to dollar cost Bitcoin for 12 months, dollar cost average, like, just buy the same amount, same time every week, maybe $10, $20, whatever, it doesn't matter. Basically, for 12 months, then stop for 12 months. So basically, dollar cost average for a year, stop for a year, and then dollar cost average out into fiat for a year. He basically says your DCA in 2017, wait 2018, DC out 2019, you'd have 1.7 or about 70% returns. And if that's not enough, a $10 investment daily for 3 years would constitute a total investment of $10,960, which means that an investment in Bitcoin would have appreciated 50.6%, bringing its total value to $16,500. And here's the kicker. That same exact investment, same exact strategy in gold would have only yielded you 27%, bringing the overall value position to 14%. So basically, dollar cost averaging in Bitcoin would have most likely outperformed most of the stocks, unless you got in at Tesla right around the right time, and definitely would have outperformed gold. And if you want to try this yourself, go over to DCABTC.com. You can type in a daily amount. You can pick for how many years, starting when, and you yourself can see that for the most part, dollar cost averaging has been the way to go, and Bitcoin still, despite, some of its recent drops and downturns and volatility, remains one of the best assets for investment. And I think the world is really starting to catch on. In fact, some of you may have seen this clip from Univision that's been floating around of this interview that they did over in Los Angeles. And I just want to play a clip really quick of what one of the protesters had to say.
What's your message to the family of George Floyd that's going to have funeral services this week? What do you want to tell them?
I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Unfortunately, we live in a system that will not allow us to thrive or strive and has continually been literally on our necks. So my macro solution for this problem for everyone is to opt out and exit the economy as a whole. And the way we do that is by buying Bitcoin.
Thank you.
So this was on live TV. Also, kind of interesting how the cameramen just started to pull away as soon as he started, recommending some possible good advice, potentially. Not financial advice on this channel, but think about all the people that actually had an opportunity to see that. You've also seen some of the protesters with Bitcoin signs and things like that. I'm not going to get into the topic of whether or not Bitcoin solves everything. Bitcoin literally doesn't solve all of the world's problems, but definitely a lot of this geopolitical stuff that we're seeing, especially with the endless printing, the negative potential interest rates, right? And it's not just the average person. You're also seeing, for example, you have ex-Andrew Yang aide is running for Congress with Bitcoin and universal basic income on his mind. So you can see there, it actually starts out by saying, for the would-be U.S. lawmaker Jonathan Herzog, financial inclusion isn't just a talking point, it's lived experience. Now, this is a super long article. I'm not going to go into it, but I did highlight these 2 sections down here. And he says, this crisis has only underpinned and accelerated the urgency and need of universal basic income, but also for the need for internet money for a decentralized, blockchain-enabled Bitcoin or crypto solution. And you can see right here, he says, I view cryptocurrency as part of the vanguard of this era's civil rights and civil liberties. Now, lots of people are saying, well, what happens if the economy goes under, right? Well, you can see that the Congressional Budget Office estimates that the United States GDP will actually contract by 16 trillion over the next decade. Now, let's actually have a look at this chart right here. You can see that with Bitcoin's daily spot volume in the ballpark of around 4.1 billion and 8 billion at its peak in 2017, it wouldn't take much longer for Bitcoin to reach equities and bonds trading levels or around 1 trillion in daily volume. So basically, to quote them, they say, if historical growth rates can be maintained, however, Bitcoin's current daily volume from spot markets of 4.3 billion would need fewer than 4 years of growth to exceed daily volume of all U.S. equities. Fewer than 5 years of growth are needed to exact daily volumes of all U.S. bonds. So even if U.S. GDP shows signs of slipping, there's plenty of room for growth in Bitcoin's burgeoning market. And you can see right here, basically, at current growth rates, we are on track within 4 to 5 years to pretty much match the same as the equities. Yeah, so there you guys go. I think that's basically where we're going to end today's video. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I do this for the most part every single day. Give or take, some days I take off. I'm only human. Thank you so much. Get subscribed if you haven't. Join the free Telegram group, link below. We hang out, just kind of talk crypto all day. No real motives. Just hang out, talk crypto. If that sounds good to you, you know what to do. My name is K-Dub. This is CryptoZombie. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.